Where is Hex and Hounds? It is... Whoa, there's 11 chapters. Okay. It's gonna be a bit of reading. So I guess we can have 11 voices.
It is known to all the Lawrence clan is a noble family of considerable notoriety. The nobles idle away their time, exhorting the common folk to furnish their lavish lifestyles. They lead licentious lives. Under the cruel governance, countless unspeakable crimes are committed against the people. Although the common folk unanimously resent the nobles' greed, they are powerless to speak a single word against them. Young Dietrich? I before E, so E is front, so Dietrich? Dietrich was a high-born noble. He hadn't yet committed any deplorable crimes at his tender age. In fact, his swordsmanship was reputedly exceptional among the noble circles. If you wish to find something to cavil about, it would have been his short temper and his chronic delusion that the whole universe revolved around him. Such traits, of course, are not uncommon amongst most sons of nobility, so that wasn't of any major concern. Come on, one semester of German kick in, it's not going to work. I'm so sorry. However, given that he was born into the Lawrence family name, he was only a matter of time before he would get drafted into the ranks of the other scoundrels. It was at this time that the young scoundrel decided upon the first reckless act of his life. A short while earlier, Dietrich had made up his mind to skip the Grand Mage's discourse on the elements in favor of a bit of fun outside the confines of the city. As he pressed his way through the streets crowded with commoners, his gaze fell upon a young lass with blonde hair and blue eyes. Dietrich was at a loss for words at the emotions that bubbled in his heart. That in that moment, the only thing he was certain of was that his heart was had never thumped so loudly or so uncontrollably within his chest. So this must be how dear mother feels when she sees her kitty. She sees her what now? As Dietrich kept thinking in his heart, he suddenly found himself moving towards where she was standing. Much to his dismay, when the young commoner girl didn't so much as bat an eyelid to him after making his identity known to her, she didn't display even the slightest sign of any interest. Convinced that this commoner didn't understand what was good for her, he decided that he would carry her off under the cover of night. Hey, yo, that's not okay. Once I take her, I'll lock her away in a cage, just like dear mother would when her kitty was being naughty. Yo, that's messed up. Hey, yo, what the hell?
This plebeian lass arrived in the city with one fine sunny day. Her long golden hair shone like a spray of sunshine, and her blue eyes sparkled like the gleaming waves in the afternoon sun. It's hard to imagine how such a girl could travel alone from the monster-infested outskirts all the way to the city. To call her suspect would be an insult to her beauty. Shouted at the drunken gate sentry among the clamor of the crowded tavern. His earnings from guarding the gate that day were especially bountiful, enough to keep the cup brimming until dawn at least. We all know you were just dumbstruck by her beauty. The man next to him pulled no punches. Ha! What do you know? Do I look like one to go frolicking after ladies? I'll show you what I have my eye on. The soldier promptly pulled out his money purse and shook it in his hand. Good heavens, today drinks are on you. You heard the man, drinks all around. I'm just worried that one more would be too much for you. So this traveling scholar who went by the name of Noti settled into a newfound life in the city. Noti spoke in a quiet, gentle manner. A rumor eventually began floating around the streets claiming that if you exchanged a few words with Noti during the day, you would have sweet dreams the following night. Apart from this, the new girl didn't disturb the lives of those in the city in any manner. After all, people not only have their lives to deal with, but also the constant oppression from the nobility. Oh, I thought the life in the city would be simple. I never imagined it would be like this. As rays of sunset filled her room, she tilted her head and rested upon her hands. Sitting besides the table, her fingers seemed to be circling around something. Her words flowing like a magical chant with the power to persuade people into believing almost anything.
I'm so sorry. Nadia, this is your fault.
Night came. The faint howl of a wild beast could be heard echoing in the distance. It seemed to be a cry of a wolf. Nadia sat on her bed and lifted her long sleeves to reveal a bone-white armband covered in the fashion of a coiling snake.
Wow, okay, Changsheng much.
The serpent's head was strikingly lifelike, with his mouth stretched open to reveal its fangs. Its neck was reared back as if ready to pounce on its prey at the very next moment. The snake's slithered body was wrapped around her arm, emitting a dangerous aura under the rays of the magical lamps that lit the room. Good night, my dear sister. Naughty gently patted petted her armband, rubbing her pinky playfully along the snake's tail. Shortly after, the magic lamps went out and the entire room was draped in darkness. The darkness of night brought Naughty boundless power. So Naughty was already wise to unknown presence in the moment it entered her room. Sitting on the bed, Naughty could clearly see Dietrich as he quietly gathered her clothes and felt his weight around in the dark. It became harder and harder for Naughty to hold back her laughter until Dietrich was in front of her. Dietrich met in the same dazzling eyes that occupied his mind all day, but her eyes were somehow different now. They were no longer blue like water as Dietrich has seen that day. At this moment, they were filled with the night, devoid of waves, tranquil like the depths of the sea. Here, drink the water in this cup. And that was the last thing Dietrich heard before his consciousness faded away. So she poisoned it. Okay.
The cup fell from his languid hand as the Dietrich collapsed to the floor. Naughty crouched beside Dietrich and relieved him of the saber sheath upon his waist. She stroked the hilt of the blade for a moment before pulling back her hand, and a black gemstone that had once been inlaid in the hilt fell to her palm. How convenient! You have brought me the Eye of Eternal Night right to me. Thank you. Removing the snake armband as she spoke, she placed the black gemstone in the mouth of the snake. Scales and flesh began to quickly ripple from the snake's head down to its body. A small black snake uncoiled in Naughty's hands, slithering off her palm and falling to the floor. The snake began to enlarge, forming a massive python with red eyes and black scales. Its twisted body almost filling the whole room.
This sounds a lot like the, what's it called? It sounds a lot like the Battle Pass story. It sounds like if I became slower. My god. I mean, that's fair. I can't reach her pitch.
Naughty extended her hand as the magical lamps illuminated the room. The python began to shrink down again and coil back around her arm. Are you hiding? Naughty turned her gaze to beneath the bed, under which she found a dog. It was trembling uncontrollably, probably frightening from the python a moment before. Oh, what a pity. I wanted to turn you into a wolf, but it seems like you turned into a dog instead. Although Naughty's word seems to be apologizing, her voice lacked any hint of remorse. Dietrich still hasn't understand what happened yet. It was only by pure instinct that he had scurried under the bed. Only did he come to his senses. He tried to say something after hearing Naughty's words, but no matter how hard she tried, only woof 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 would come out. After hearing himself, Dietrich panicked and dashed out from under the bed. No matter how many times Dietrich leaped from the mirror or how many times he howled in disbelief, the reflection of a striking young noble never appeared again. Dietrich was turned into a snarl and leapt towards Naughty. Without even being least bit startled, she simply glanced at him with folded arms. Suddenly, Dietrich could no longer move towards her, no matter how hard he tried. That's not the proper etiquette for addressing a lady. It seems you need to be trained.
Ayo?
Allow me to introduce myself again. I am Notfria. Perhaps you're more familiar with my nickname. People call me the Enchantress of the Night. As she spoke, her long golden hair began to gradually darken, turning black as the night sky outside the window. Her once sky blue eyes were now pitch black, ushering in the darkness of night. I am your master now. Of course, I will need to train you as well. Notfriga knelt down and placed a necklace that seemingly appeared out of nowhere on his still struggling Dietrich. The necklace shrank in size until it fit perfectly around his furry neck. No matter how he thrashed his head about or clawed at it, the necklace would not budge. Tis, we've already wasted so much time. Come, we're leaving. With that, Notfriga set off towards the city. Dietrich whimpered along the way with all the strength that he could muster, wishing that he could simply run back to his villa. But he couldn't, no matter how hard he tried. The necklace Notfriga had placed on him seemed to somehow control him, so he had no choice but following her behind. Notfriga glanced back at the reluctant Dietrich waddling behind her and curled a strand of hair around her finger. Although it's certainly amusing to watch you struggle in your current state, you're much too noisy, so unless you like a taste of my new Silence of the Night spell, you better keep your yapping mouth shut. The whole world seemed to fall into silence at that moment. Intuition told Dietrich that it's best not to become the latest test subject for Notfriga's new spell.
Now the problem is, Nadia wants me to read the next volume in Texas Toad, so if anyone would like to plug their ears, you are welcome to. I'm so sorry for all the Texans, because this does not sound like a Texan accent at all, but we will try.
Dietrich witnessed the fall of the House of Lawrence. Who knew where Mother Kitty had gone? His father driven to destruction and his mother hysterical were so close by. And yet no matter how he shouted, they did not pay him any heed. Arf! Dietrich lowered her head, but before he could speak again, the ground opened up beneath him. A pair of old crone hands stretched out from the ground, seizing him by the neck. Then he fell, and his fall seemed not to end, till at last he crashed into the earth at the feet of the old witch. Strangely, it did not hurt at all. Something looked into Dietrich's necklace, and he found himself hoisted up bodily. All before him was darkness, and he could only see one thing, which was below him. It was a seeming font, filled with some unknown black substance that gurgled and spelched. There were some solids in there too, and when he looked, he could speak spider webs and the bones of venomous vipers. Into his ear crept Nofriga's voice. I have you now, my last ingredients. Once I put you in, my stew of life eternal shall be complete. Ha 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 ha! Woof woof woof! Let me go, you dastardly witch! Dietrich struggled with all his might, not thinking for a moment that the bond adhered to his inescapable necklace would suddenly be so easily skipped. And so he fell. He heard nothing more, not else but the howling wind and Nofriga's crazed laughter whipping around in his ears.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry to everyone's ears that just listened to this.
Wake up! Dietrich felt his body being rocked gently. Are you all right? A hand reached over us to check his breathing. It was a familiar voice, gentle as the April breeze and genial as the March sun.
Oh, genial?
Genial as the March sun. Dietrich forced his eyes open, and before them was a long-haired, blue-eyed girl. Ah, wonderful, you're finally awake, she said with a smile. Is this Celestia? Dietrich wondered. No, I'm afraid it's just an ordinary forest, the girl replied. Then Dietrich's senses returned to him, and he knew then that the young lady before him was the source of all his troubles, that wicked old witch, Nofriga. In a flash, he had recovered and leaping his distance away from her as he maintained a guarded stance. Don't be afraid. I won't hurt you. I must have forgotten to introduce myself. My name is Madeline. Well, I'm Nofriga's younger sister. So saying, Madeline gave her the finger behind back of a twirl, a calming spell of light magic, and she approached Dietrich. Come now, it's all right. And he did this, Dietrich indeed calmed down. He desired to ask the girl before him how he could understand him, but he could still not but bark. Oh, this? But this is a small spell. My sister knows it too. Woof, woof, woof. So that crone did hear what I said and simply pretended not so she could string me along? Well, still, Nofriga was actually a gentle person, and speaking of her sister, Madeline smiled gorgeously once more.
Do witches trade their brain for mighty magic? I can't get through to her at all. Dietrich thought to himself as he followed the golden-haired maiden who rambled on about something or another. Don't say that. If my sister heard you, she would be most angry. Madeline said this in a quiet voice as she looked at Dietrich. Woof, 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 woof? Well, you didn't need to tell her, do you? Well, how do you know what I was thinking? Why did it turn weirdly southern? But it's too late now. Dietrich lifted his head and arm and rising pressure above him. Her expression had not changed at all, but even so, he knew that the girl before him was now changed. It seems like your nightmare has been of some use, for your memory at least, but as sure seen it, you were still far from adequate. That proud, cold voice from on high. Yes, surely this was Nofriga. Well then, I suppose I shall leave the essence of inmost heart inside you. What on earth was the essence of inmost heart? Wait, no, Madeline had mentioned just such a thing. Don't worry, the nightmare from before was a falsehood. My sister placed the essence of the inmost heart into you, and you can see it in your fears. That's why you dreamed of the things you feared most. But I think that my sister might have done it for your good. She is, after all, a most gentle soul. Dietrich's fur stood on end as he trembled as peeking Nofriga, banishing any other thought from his mind. Ha! Sees that my teachings have been quite useful indeed. Well then, let us be on our way. Dietrich's frightened appearance pleased his master, the witch. That was nothing like Meowth, but you know what? We tried.
This was a forest without end. A fine mist shrouded in the area, and the golden rays of dawn shone through the canopy, scattering themselves on the emerald earth below. At this moment, Madeline was clutching a dog. Indeed, this was Dietrich. She kept up at a leisurely pace. The golden-haired maiden trapezed upon the gnarled roots of the massive trees like an elegant swan, likely making her way through the room. How fortunate that she is currently Madeline. If it were that hag, Nofrida, she would certainly make me walk or use some sort of magic to force me to run. This path is not made for dogs. Not even humans could traverse it. There isn't even a road, only trees. Ah, it would be so nice if Madeline could keep carrying me like this. Dietrich's thoughts meandered as he looked towards Madeline. The morning light danced upon her face. She possessed a beauty that could not be considered lesser by any noblewoman's. Her light complexion and gentle expression made her seem delicate, like the short-lived morning dew born upon flower petals. Madeline's skin is so fair. I dare say none of the nobles I met can compare to her, Dietrich thought as he gazed upon the girl. Let me tell you a story. That is, I'm already dead, Madeline suddenly spoke. Hello? She's dead? Huh? Okay. A long time ago, there was a witch who gave birth to twin daughters. However, witches are unable to keep two offspring from the same generation. That is the price they pay, and the cost of their enormous power. But this witch had already reached the apex of mastery in the dark magic. She offered her own life force to preserve the life of her twins. Still, the solution could not last forever. As the last of the witch's life force faded, the day of their fated farewell arrived at last. In the death the witch had finally freed from this world. The surviving elder sister, Nofriga, inherited everything and felt entirely responsible for the passing of her younger sister, Madeline. Luckily for Nofriga, she inherited the witch's talent for dark magic. Using herself as a vessel, she summoned Madeline's soul using a complicated magic symbol and obscure incantations. Then she read all of her leather-bound books in the tower, and combining what she learned with dark magic and alchemy, created a new vessel. However, the ability to place her sister's soul inside the vessel and bring her back to life was not only a forbidden art in light magic, it was also exceptionally difficult, especially for Nofriga, who knew no light magic whatsoever. Nevertheless, Nofriga's insistence on bringing Madeline back spurred her on, and eventually she found a solution. She transformed the vessel into a serpent bracelet that she wore on her wrist and set out on an adventure. My beloved sister, when this is all over, will we never be apart again? The last ray of light was fading, and the darkness was about to engulf the forest. It's time to switch, my dear elder sister. Suddenly, Madeline put down Dietrich, whom she had been holding in her arms. One last thing, elder sister. I have a present for you. I hope you like it. With this, the light slowly began to shine from her fingers, gradually forming a dazzling ball of light. This was Madeline's light magic. Alright, from now on, you have to be well behaved. Shh, don't say anything. What? Why are you being so mysterious? Ugh. Before Dietrich could react, he had quietly muttered something, but his speech was interrupted when he suddenly found a slender hand tightly covering his mouth. A moment later, the girl, now transformed, hastily stuffed something into his mouth. What is this? It was the hilt of Dietrich's sword, the sword that he had once proudly hung from his belt. Huh? Dietrich opened his mouth instinctively to say something. Bite down on it if you want to live. Nofriga raised one hand into the air, and Dietrich felt unable to breathe as the collar around his neck grew tighter and tighter. Powerless to resist, all he could do was bite down as he instructed. Listen carefully. In a moment, you'll need to defend yourself with this sword. Even though you're an arrogant and useless spoiled brat, it will be a lot of trouble for me if you died here. Nofriga raised Dietrich's head and spoke in a low voice. After all, I haven't finished teaching you a lesson yet. It would ruin my fun if you died too easily. The Witch of the Night finished speaking and retracted her hand to adjust her garments. The collar loosened again, returning to its normal tightness. At once, the air rushed past his teeth and through its nostrils, filling up his lungs again. Dietrich did not dare relax his jaw's grip on the sword. However, he had to make do with somewhat impaired breathing. Before long, the sound of commotion was heard in the distance.
I don't know what happened in the story. I'm not gonna lie. So he got turned into a dog. He is still a dog. So this is one of the lost noblemen of the Lord's clan, right? I wonder if this is an allegory, right? Or if this is actual history, like one-to-one history. It seems more like an allegory if I'm going to be honest. Bro is dog? Bro got isekai'd into a dog. That's what happened. Something happened. He dog now. That's all it is.